and I have a bunch of showings scheduled for today.
Yep.
And my seller calls me up right now and says, hey, Nick, I want you to change it to from whatever percent to another percentage.
Yep.
And I changed that. Do I have any obligation to notify all the agents that are gonna show the home later, or is there any binding to that?
Once it goes into the MLS, you now, yeah, you can make a change at any moment. The issue becomes after you've accepted it.
After you've accepted offer.
Once you accept an offer. And we do see that, a couple times a year where someone changes it after the offer is accepted and goes back in and tries to mess with it. And we usually get a lawsuit will be filed, and then we'll get a subpoena, and they'll ask us when it was changed, who was changed by, what time it was changed at, et cetera. Yep.
What about after it was received, but before it's accepted?
So that gets into ethics, right? I mean, I think if you're all of a sudden getting a bunch of offers coming in and you're like, oh, we're gonna sell this house, let's change the commission. You have to kind of look yourself in the mirror at that point and say, is the appearance of what I did look fraudulent and ethical? And
What if you're being instructed by your client?
if you're being instructed by a client, you're being instructed by your client. That doesn't mean that you won't get held to what you promised out. Because once that offer is received, you're kind of in contractual world, right? If they call it the mailbox rule, as an offer, there's acceptance. What happens in between is a gray area, and it really is motivation. Are you fraudulently or unethically trying to change the contract because you can benefit yourself now that those offers have come in? Those are not great situations to be in as an agent.
I have a situation. I
Yep.
asked for putting my house in the MLS.
Yep.
I accepted an offer, and now I put in MLS only for backups.
Yep.
So the percentage is different from the offer. I offer 3% to the buyer.
Yep.
But then in the MLS it's 2.5.
Yep.
It doesn't matter, right?
With the seller offer 2.5?
No, with the offer is 3%. I'm
Uh-huh.
offering 3%, but then when I put it in the MLS later, because it didn't happen at the same time.
Okay.
And then now I'm offering 2.5 only.
So you've changed it.
I changed
Yeah.
it, but I'm not changing it with the buyer. I'm just changing
Well,
it
just
to the
remember,
next.
when you sign your agreement with your seller who you're representing,
Mhm.
they're offering to pay you, and then
Yeah.
you're offering to pay out. Right?
She's the seller then.
You're the guy.
I'm
So-
the seller and the agent.
You're fine.
Oh, you're both.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to think ethically. Like, are you doing the right thing? That's what I always tell people. Is,
Yes.
Are you doing the right thing? If you're trying to manipulate something, you're going to lose in the long run.
Yes.
And
No.
you're going to be on the other side. Right?
Yes.
And you don't want someone to treat you that way when you're on the buyer side. I'm going to just put a little aside about commissions, because commissions are probably the number one thing that the Department of Justice is looking at in the country right now. Right, they're very much scrutinizing residential real estate, and but you hear all the time people say, "Oh, this is the commission that we charge," or whatever it is. I want to just kind of challenge you a little bit, because it's not very standard around the world. I just want you to know, right? Even around the country. And there are places that charge a lot more than what people are charging here. And here's what I'll put outside the box. Generation Z and a little bit of the millennials, they will pay Uber Eats to bring them a Big Mac from brought to them at their house for the $4 Big Mac. $5 inflation, right? Why do they do that? Convenience. And what is this generation all about? It's all about service. It's all about, I want everything concierge to me, right? I'll pay more for you to do more for me. And I challenge every real estate professional in here to think about that, because you can get a lot more if you service your clients even better, right? People, this younger generation, they don't really, they're looking to pay. They're paying for stupid things. I mean, subscription here, subscription there, food delivery here, food delivery there. It's part of their DNA growing up right now is service fees, right? They don't want to drive, they want to take Uber, right? They don't want to go to a budget rental car, they want to take Turo, right? They're about service, and they're about paying more for what they want. So if you give them what they want, they'll pay more for it. So I just want to challenge you on that, because don't ever think your services have to be put into a box. I know quite a few agents who charge like 8%. but they'll do everything. They bring in handyman service, they'll move the person, they'll take care of it all. They're like, it's a one-stop shop. You come to me, I'll put you in that house, you don't have to lift a finger. And someone's like, for 8%, done deal. Right, and so I just want you to think about that a little bit, because I think sometimes we get stuck in, I don't want to call it the race to the bottom, but sometimes agents feel like they're in a race to the bottom, right? Throwing away their commissions or charging less. Sometimes you got to offer more, and this younger generation will pay. You know, the boomers, probably not, but the younger generation, definitely. Let's see, the biggest thing in the MLS, the biggest legal issue we face other than antitrust issues that come up in the real estate industry all the time is copyright. Okay, so does anybody here what do you think, which part of the MLS do you think is an original work of authorship? Those remarks. What about number of bedrooms? Number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, square footage is not copyrightable. It is a fact about the property. A lot of it comes from the counties. It cannot be filed with the Copyright Office. Our entire database is filed quarterly with the United States Copyright Office. We file a quarterly copyright because people in the industry, I don't know if you've heard of this before, people from out of the country a lot of times try to scrape the websites for data. So they'll try to scrape realtor.com and Zillow and utahrealestate.com, and they'll try to get a picture of the entire database so they can then run it through their own channels, sell that information, do other things with it. So we copyright it. We tag our system. We have all kinds of technology to try to follow anyone who tries to scrape on our website. But your biggest work of authorship is the photos. Now, who actually owns the copyright to the photo? Does anyone here use a professional photographer? Okay, so what happens then? Who owns it? Do you own it when you pay the photographer?
Yeah, whoever pays for it, right?
Whoever pays for it? Photographer owns it. Who signs an agreement with their photographer when they take the photos?
And the agent,
What's that?
the agent.
You sign an agreement?
I think.
No,
So who said that the photographer owns copyright? Okay, that's correct. Whoever takes the photo owns it. Okay. There have been 6 or 7 huge lawsuits. They do not sue the agents and they do not sue the MLSs. They sue like Zillow or realtor.com or homes.com or some of the big sites. And the focus of the lawsuit is, I provided photography services to agents X, Y, and Z. I signed an agreement with them that told them they can only use the photos when the listing is active. Now, if the listings are inactive, that photo continues to appear, it's in violation of my copyright. Agents are like, well, I didn't pay attention. I might have just signed something online when I paid my money, or there was a little disclaimer at the bottom. If I can give you any advice, you need to have them give you basically it's a non-exclusive, royalty-free, perpetual license to use the photos. Right, that is what you need. And on our website, in the MLS, if you go into the forms section, the legacy forms library, there's on the very bottom right-hand corner, there are 3 agreements that NAR provides that you can give to your photographers to sign that give you the rights to those photos. Yep. It's on the MLS. It's forms, legacy forms page on the bottom kind of right corner. We'll talk about photography agreements. Those are free to use and you can use them at any time. I highly recommend it. Okay.
Why are there 3?
There's just different sorts of how you're using, like a broker paying for their office, agents using them. There's a couple different ones. But you have to be really careful with that. The biggest thing we see in the MLS is what's her name? Luz puts a listing in. She puts her photo in. What's her name? Marcy lists the same property. A year later, what does Marcy do? She copies Luz's photos and puts them on her listing. That is a blatant copyright violation. You can actually file a lawsuit in federal court, ask for treble damages, and sue for copyright infringement. Okay, we clamp down on that very hard. We do not want, that is the laziest thing you can do as an agent, right? Is to copy someone else's photos and their intellectual property. So don't do that. Now, we see these letters all the time. Anybody in here ever use a photo from Google or from like the image libraries on the things and ever put them in their listing? Do you have the right to do that? Do you have the right to go onto Google Earth, take a snapshot and put an overview of the property on as one of your photos? You can do that. What about if you find a picture of the HOA facility that's online? And you're like, yeah, that's a great picture of the clubhouse or the tennis courts. Let me right click, save, and I'll put it on my listings. Can you do that? Cannot do that, right? We see it all the time. Google Maps, Google Earth is amazing. It's like crack for the consumer, but it is extremely expensive, right? Every time someone clicks on a map, we have to pay for it when you're a business. Once you exceed 25,000 clicks a month, Google charges outrageous fees to use their maps, to use Google Earth, to use all the stuff you see on websites is all paid for. So you can't do it. And here's what they do. They tag every photo. Photographer, all kinds of people, it's free with something, a company called Getty Images. I don't know if you've ever seen it. Sometimes you'll see Getty Images in the back. Getty Images then crawls the entire internet, finds the photos that are on different websites. And if they have not taken a license out for that photo, they will take a screenshot of the website, send it to the website owner and say, send us $900 for this photo. We see that about 50 times a year in Utah. I get those letters, right? That Luce put in a photo of her HOA community. It was not a photo she took. It was a photo she got off the internet. It was filed with Getty Images. They want us to pay 900. They want Luce to pay 900. And they are very aggressive. Okay. So this is a very, very common practice. And do not use, unless you have permission, do not use just random photos on the internet. You'll get hit with fines. And it's less random than you think. California, we're probably processing 100 for 100,000 members, probably 100 a month of these that were illegal photos that we have to take out. Okay. To protect yourself, though, in 1998, Congress passed something called the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, and it's referred to as the DMCA. And basically what it is a safe harbor. If you run a website, how many people in here have their own IDX website or a real estate website where you show listings? You have no control over the photos that are shown on your page, right? Those are coming through an IDX data feed to the company. However, you're responsible for every photo that shows up on your website. If you're responsible for it, even if it's a listing that you don't own or that's not your client and the photo is a violation, Getty Images can hit you with the fine. They can hit you with the letter, they can sue you directly. Okay. However, if you register with the DMCA, it used to be, I think it's $6 now to register. It used to be $100. For $6 one time, you can register your website with the Copyright Office. And all you have to do is have a link at the bottom that says Digital Millennium Copyright Office, and then some basic information on your website that it links out. You will stop getting these letters. You actually are almost immune from getting sued because it says, I have taken reasonable action with the Copyright Office that I do not control all the content on a website. So if someone finds something that violates copyright, they have to send me a letter and then I have to take it down. Okay, what does that involve in real practice? Hey, MLS, I just got a letter. This photo is being held to be in violation of Getty Images copyright. Can you investigate? We'll investigate. We'll pull it out of MLS, stops it in the data feed, and you'll never get sued. Okay. If you do not have the DMCA up on your individual site, all you have to do is call your website provider because they probably already have this built in. You're at risk, and those letters are actually tough to fight. And people end up just writing checks to Getty Images all the time. And it's a scam, but it's a real scam and it's legally defensible. So the DMCA is the easiest thing you can do to protect your website, protect you. What we've heard is that Getty Images now, when they scan a website, if they see the DMCA link at the bottom of the page, they just don't bother sending letters. So that'll help you out. Okay. Get written permission. Don't copy other people's data, right? Don't copy their comments, don't copy their remarks, don't copy their photos. And just make sure you get permission. We do see permission all the time. If you call Luce and she's like, yeah, you're fine to use the photos. Okay, that's okay. Just get it in writing. However, if Luce used a photographer to take those pictures, she can't even give you the right to utilize those photos. Okay. Any questions on photos, videos, any kind of media or remarks? Yes.
Well, just with management that's here, so with our photographer that we used, we have these agreements in place, we don't have to be worried about it. With Amart,
I have no idea.
So I can't think of it, the big company is
Agreements
V
for us.
V
Just
VP something.
place that when we get those photos. they're not large.
We don't own them, he still owns them. But we can use them based off of your agreement to pay.
You just need you need a perpetual license to use the photo in any way you want, and that's the key, because I think it was VFX is the big company, national photography company, all these photographers.
VHT.
VHT,
Yeah.
they're the ones that sued, right? And they sued Zillow. And they said, you're posting all these photographs and you don't have the right to post them. And they were correct. They weren't gonna sue the agents. Why won't they sue the agents? Because they're the ones paying them, right? They're not gonna sue the MLSs because that's the only way that agents are gonna use it, is to put it in the MLS. They're gonna sue the other providers, the big money, right? And so they can sue you, they just probably won't. Okay, syndication. Does anybody know what syndication is? It's kind of falling away. This was the biggest topic of the past 10 years. But it has changed dramatically. So syndication was a website company wanting to see listings from members of the MLS and agents and brokers who were not part of IDX. They're not brokers themselves. Okay. And so what they needed to do is get permission from all of you to get listings on their site. So when I got here 8 years ago, Zillow did not have a license with the MLS. And so the only way that listings could go to Zillow was brokers were giving direct permission to Zillow to take listings on the site. So if you had a client that's like, hey, I want my listing, why is my listing not on Zillow? It was up to the broker to sign a permission to do that. Since that time, we did sign an agreement with Zillow, and then you had, if you remember, you used to have a individual listing choice and listing input. Yes, I want my listing to go. No, I don't. However, now Zillow is a broker in all 50 states, and homes.com, which was our last syndication partner, is now a broker in all 50 states. And by being a broker, they have now agreed to the rules of IDX, and they can send in listings and receive listings just like everybody else. So syndication is falling away, but the competition by these brokers is still unknown, right? Zillow came in and wanted to iBuy, right? They said, hey, our whole thing is we're going to get broker's license and we're going to do this iBuying thing. And then we're going to list back on the MLS once we've bought the home, do some work and flip it. They pulled out of that business late last year, or yeah, it was probably like June or July. Very smart people. They knew the market was changing and they got out of the business before they got hurt. Open Door, huge iBuyer, their direct competitor is still in it. And they're suffering greatly. I think they had $1 billion loss last quarter. I have 2 Yetis, okay, to give away Utah real estate. If anyone, Phoenix is the hotbed for every weird real estate trend that ever happens, whether it's discount brokerages, whether it's iBuying, whatever it is, it happens first in Phoenix. Does anybody want to guess why in Phoenix? Because every home is like exactly the same. It's easy to value them. They're built in these massive tracts. It's a great place. The market is still somewhat affordable. And so every real estate company who gets venture capital goes to Phoenix first to try out their business model. Phoenix was the hotbed for OfferPad, iBuyer, Open Door, iBuyer, and Zillow, iBuyer. In 2021, what percentage of listings do you think were purchased by iBuyers? And one guess for when getting
30%.
of every deal was an iBuyer deal? 30%.
I'm saying 8%.
7%.
10%. Nobody's too close yet.
70.
Well, we'd all be out of business if it was 4%, 2%. No, I heard a 10, higher than 10. Who says 16?
Well,
That's close enough. So 15%. 15%. 15%. 15. Well, yeah, 15%. So they grew as big as 15% in the Phoenix market. So 15 out of 100 transactions
That's
were
huge.
being done by iBuyers.
Yeah.
Expect that number to drop to probably 5% at the end of 2023. They're still trying. Open Door has about 20 active listings in Utah. I think at their highest, they're about 160 listings were active. It's tough when the market is going a little bit down. Does anybody know why for iBuyers? What do you think the biggest challenges? They buy it. Why do you think MLS is worried about iBuyers? You don't know. Because the original transaction is never recorded. We have no idea what they paid for that property. You have no idea what they paid for that property. Your CMA is never gonna be perfectly accurate because we don't know what happened in that original transaction, okay? But they have to pay property tax, they have to pay for maintenance. They have HOAs in a lot of situations, and those are direct dollars out that they have to pay, and they have to turn that house around. And has anybody been through an open door like property where you use the app to open the door and go through it? There are cameras in there and everything.
Yeah, half the time you can't get in because they regulate the time.
Totally, but technology is really cool. I'll tell you what they use. So they can tell how, when you're, because you have their app open when you're in the house, they can tell how long you're spending in the kitchen. Right, or how long you spend in a bedroom. And they actually are doing artificial intelligence to say, they must really like the kitchen, or they must really like the bathroom. And they'll actually send a follow-up. Usually if you're using an agent, they won't do this, but if it's a consumer going in direct, they'll send a follow-up and say, did you like the cabinets in this house? And they'll try to get more information on that property using an AI sort of, where am I in the house? What am I doing? How long did I spend in certain rooms? Et cetera, et cetera. So fascinating approach, but probably not going to be a business model that will survive if the market goes down too far. Next question.
What is the percentage nationwide? If it's 50.
Of iBuying?
15,
It's probably
Say
under
like 5%
3%, under 3%.
Under 3%?
Yeah, under 3% nationwide. And they never made it to every market. I mean, they were Phoenix, Charlotte, Nashville, Orlando. They hit Austin, they hit some big kind of hot markets where they were really trying to. But think about it, if you got to buy 100 properties, their original goal was they were only going to buy under 350. Well, as the market went crazy, there was like hardly any homes under 350, right? So then all of a sudden you need more of that venture capital to buy. It's costly. You got to raise billions. You got to get the Silicon Valley banks to give you money, and it's tough. It's a tough model. It's made work.
Did Zillow lose a lot of money straight out the gate? on it?
Absolutely, tons. And they had thousands of properties sitting when they made the decision, and they were just gotta clear them out before things got, kind of worse. Yep. But they cleared them out and they're out. Right. All right, we have our new days on market rule. This just came out. How are y'all doing with that? Everybody good? Everybody understand it? I like to go over it, but it's important because the consumer does not understand the two. Right, and so you give them a detailed report, and they would be like, days on market is 2, but cumulative days on market is 755. What does that mean? And it was done. I think it was a good thing, and a lot of MLSs had cumulative days on market and days on market. Some had 4 or 5 different calculations, but we talked about it as a board, and we said, the real reason we see people kind of doing this was a practice called cancel and relist. Like, I'm going to convince my seller that if I cancel the property and relist it and get a new MLS number, then magically when that DOM resets, the property is going to sell. It's going to make a big difference. This is not truthful. There's no statistics to back that up. But we did know that there was a real issue with people who were doing it to say, hey, I'm going to remodel property, right? We're going to put a new roof on, we're going to paint it, we're going to do all this stuff. And it really is going to be a different property. And so what we said is, what if we lower the 90-day CDOM reset to 30 days? Because most people do their stuff in a 30-day period. And we also make it so that if the listing switches from an office, so let's say I have a terrible experience with brokerage A and I'm going to move to brokerage B at the end of my agreement, I'm not going to necessarily punish brokerage B who may market and do many different things with this listing differently. And so those are the big changes really on CDOM is CDOM is now DOM, and it can be reset a little bit quicker and easier than ever before. Any questions on that? Just kind of throwing it out there. I've got so much to cover, and I'll answer anything. If you have questions at the end, just you can ask me anything. I'm going to go to the NAR litigation because this is something you probably don't see every day, but this is transformative in our industry. There are 4 big lawsuits ongoing and 1 major investigation ongoing into residential real estate. And this affects everybody. Even if you're not paying attention to it, it affects everyone. These 2 cases, Morrill and Sitzer, which is now called Barnett because Sitzer backed out, are what they call class action pieces of litigation. What they said was brokers are conspiring with associations and NAR to artificially inflate commissions. And that home buyers are being, homeowners and home buyers are being almost discriminated against to inflating values of prices of homes that really should be a lot lower, but they're not lower because the commissions are so high. And the rule that they target is an MLS rule that NAR mandates. So that is, an offer of compensation has to be provided in the MLS. Could be a penny, right? It could be 90%, it's whatever you want, but because they're saying, because it's mandated by NAR and the brokerage community have worked together to artificially inflate commissions. Okay. It's kind of bogus, but it's got a lot of teeth to it. Okay. This was filed in 2019 and it's covers 20 markets, all the major markets across the United States. The Sitzer case is a state case, exactly the same. And they sued NAR. They sued Realogy, which is now Anywhere, which Central 21 is part. They sued Remax. They sued Keller Williams. They sued Berkshire Hathaway. They sued pretty much every major brokerage in the country, and NAR. And now we're at a place where discovery is finishing up. And in Sitzer, the judge granted class certification. Okay. How many of you have ever gotten an email or a little card in the mail that says you're part of the class of Ticketmaster? You know, you opt out, or you'll receive 37 cents, credit next time you log into Ticketmaster and buy tickets, or, you get a free movie pass at a movie theater or whatever it is. Think about this. In Missouri, anybody who sold a home or bought a home with all of those brokers received one of those cards in the mail in July, saying you're part of the class. It's been certified. You bought a home with Better Homes and Gardens or Remax or Keller Williams. You may have paid more for the house than you should have. You may have paid more in commission than you should have, and you're now part of the class and you may receive compensation down the line. This case goes to trial in October of this year. Anyone want to guess the damages in the state case? Think about every transaction for the past 7 years for anybody who used that broker on the buy or sell side.
100 million.
100 million,
A billion.
billion,
50 billion.
50 billion is a little high.
500.
Yeah, that's significant.
Okay, nobody hit it on this one. Moral is the same one for the whole country. Same brokerages, NAR, whole country. What do you think the damages are in that case? We'll give it out of this one.
For the whole country,
1 billion, the whole country,
3 billion.
3 billion. Nobody's close.
About 10 billion.
10 billion, no one's close yet.
30 billion.
Not even close.
Same mistake,
What?
but-
150?
You say
Keep going. More,
Wow.
500 billion?
500, yeah.
too high.
200.
200 billion. $200 billion is the estimated damages in Laurel. Wow. Potentially bankruptcy for all the brokers, bankruptcy for NAR. Okay, there's no way to pay it. More than the tobacco cases, right? From the 90s, more money at issue than tobacco cases in the 90s, which settled for about $200 billion over a 25-year payment cycle. This is the biggest issue in real estate today. It will transform everything. At the same time, the Department of Justice is piggybacking on these cases and investigating real estate. They're saying they have subpoenaed think about this, they've subpoenaed every single closing document from every one of these brokerages across the United States.
Wow.
Right?
How do you-
It is massive, right? It is a massive investigation. And they want some rules. And here's what they want in the rules. And there was a settlement. Okay, it was agreed to. I think it was October of 2020. An agreement was reached between NAR and the Department of Justice that said these rules, we're going to agree to change these rules, and you're going to get off our back, Department of Justice. And those rules were the following: you cannot search by compensation in the MLS. You cannot sort by compensation in the MLS. You cannot advertise your services as free. You cannot restrict lockbox access based on like association membership, right? If you're a member, if you're a licensee in the state, you should have access to the whole state. You cannot require compensation in the MLS.
So
You must disclose the percentage of commission publicly. Okay, those are the rules. NAR agreed to some of them. They came up with a settlement. They had the settlement drafted. In that time period, the Department of Justice went silent. Trump exits office, Biden enters office, and Biden administration says, we're not going to settle the case. We want to investigate further. We want to go deep. We want to dive deeper into residential real estate. We don't think the settlement covered enough. Okay. NAR sued the Department of Justice. This is unheard of. And said, you Department of Justice are just like any other person. If you've agreed to settle a case and you've actually written in writing that you're going to settle this case, you were required to settle the case. Last month, NAR won
Wow.
that case against the DOJ. And we are waiting to see if the DOJ is going to appeal or if they're going to sign the settlement, have those 5 or 6 rules, and we move on our way. That is something that's tangibly going to happen and a huge win for real estate, because this is not good for, you don't want the Department of Justice hanging over your industry's head.
Plus the consumer loses. If NAR goes bankrupt and all these marketing and experts exit the marketplace, it is going to be crazy legal battles between people putting together transactions that have holes all over.
It is a potential disaster.
Yeah.
Okay, but here's what I know with class actions, because I litigated a few of them before I started this industry, is that they have to settle because the plaintiff's attorneys always win, right? If you look at the Ticketmaster litigation, that was the most recent one. It was settled for billions of dollars. Everybody who's part of the class got like $1.37, but the attorneys got like $47 million, right? If it goes to trial and they lose, they fronted all that money for free for 10 years or for 5 years litigating cases, they get nothing. It probably will settle, but we're not talking about like a $10,000 settlement. We're talking about probably hundreds of millions to make this go away. And nobody knows where that's going to come from. So it's a very interesting case, but it affects all of you, because at the end of the day, the plaintiffs are saying, we don't want any kind of semblance of commission to be promised from the listing agent to the buyer's agent. That's really what they're saying. They're saying the buyer should pay the buyer's agent directly.
But that hurts people trying to enter
100%.
the housing market.
100%. So when you start seeing, and pay attention, there's articles, there's stuff on TV, you'll see like plaintiff's attorneys on there, NAR spokespersons on there. You got to communicate that message, right? At the end of the day, the current model works really well because everybody can kind of make money, and it allows people to get into homes, right? If you had to go write a check to your buyer's agent right off the bat for $5,000, and then you decide you're not going to buy the house, maybe that's great for the buyer's agent, but probably not, right? It brings bad taste into the mouth of the consumer. So at the end of the day, that is what these cases are about. They feel that if the buyer pays the buyer's agent directly, houses will not be inflated, artificially inflated.
There
Okay,
will be less buyers, so prices will go down.
that's their belief. Plaintiffs believe that. Okay, but that is a monumental case. It is probably the biggest legal issue that's ever been over our industry. About in 2006, we have IDX and VOW websites because of the Department of Justice. That was the last time they investigated residential real estate, and what they did there. This makes me feel old because I was part of this, but it was because, let's say that Nick opened a brokerage and he's like, you know what, I don't want a brick and mortar. I'm going to work out of my house, create my own brokerage. I'm not going to have clients come anywhere. And I should be entitled to still get the data from the MLS and have a website and do everything else. The Department of Justice says, absolutely. You don't have to be in a brick and mortar in order to do business in the future. You should be able to get these data feeds. The only reason we have IDX and VAL is because of 2006 DOJ investigation. Okay. Now we're in the 2020 DOJ investigation. Something will come out of it. I do believe though, there'll be a settlement. We'll move on. We'll have some new rules. Everything's gonna be great. Okay, but it's painful in the process, and painful more to me, and I don't want you guys to experience pain.
What are some of those rules you think are gonna be implemented?
I think there'll be a requirement that there's no commission required in the MLS.
Right.
And there has been 2 MLS in the country that actually put that in place a couple of years ago. No issues,
Yeah, you don't see it.
just nothing, right? Like just kind of, it was a non-issue. We've been publishing the commission because we're required to do it by NAR. They actually adopted some of the DOJ settlement rules just to say, you know what, we know they're coming, we're going to do it. We've been publishing it on our public site for probably almost 2 years now. Nothing. Right?
Well, we've had clients bring. it up.
Some, but like not like industry changing. Let's just say that. Yes, it's more information, but it's not, it hasn't destroyed the industry.
If the DOJ settles, will
Yep.
those other lawsuits go away or be
Nope.
affected? They can still move forward.
And just so you know, the other case, just real quick, if you guys have time, I'll talk forever, but Rex versus NAR and Zillow. Rex was a brokerage in the United States, and basically what their whole model was is I will not become realtors, I will not join any organized real estate. We're gonna just sell real estate on our own as the brokerage out there. And what they were doing was they were putting their listings directly onto Zillow. Okay, and so you couldn't tell the difference between Luce's listing and Rex's listing. However, when Zillow became a brokerage, they had to now agree to all the rules of NAR. And part of that rules is you have to abide by the IDX rules and regulations. So what Zillow did, it was, here's all the listings from agents and brokers. And then we have an other tab, which would be your FSBOs and your listings from non-participating brokers. Okay, Rex said the minute that Zillow did that, their business fell apart. Can you imagine suing another broker saying the way you run your website is destroying our own business, right? And so they sued NAR and Zillow because NAR creates the rules for IDX, and they sued Zillow because they said, Zillow, by you creating that other tab, you're destroying our business. These two parties have never been friends, NAR and Zillow. Now they're on the same team fighting the lawsuit. Case is still going on. I don't think there's a ton of merit in it, but they're saying they colluded together to drive them out of business. PLS versus NAR. It's the private listing network, top agent network. There's a bunch of different names for it, but it was a company that basically said, we're only going to let in an elite club of agents. And by elite, they mean whoever's willing to pay us a bunch of money to market their properties just to each other. And not let it be exposed to the consumer, not let it be exposed to other agents. We're going to market it together. They were operating mainly in San Francisco. And then NAR passed the clear cooperation rule, which says that if you market a property as a broker, you have to put it on the MLS within 1 business day. They said, you just killed our business overnight because those agents who are part of our little club now have to put the listing somewhere else. And they have a lawsuit currently in place as well. So that's your legal climate in the MLS right there. And we follow all these cases really carefully. We're briefed on them all the time. And you know, it's a big deal, but the goal is we keep real estate moving forward and everybody's just doing your day-to-day and we worry about these things. Okay, sold data real quick. I'll kind of end with this. You all know that Utah is a non-disclosure state. How many people think that Utah has a law that says sold prices cannot be recorded at the county? Anybody? Nobody volunteering. There's one.
That is a lot.
That's a law. Anybody? It is not a law. It is a common practice in Utah. It has not been codified. There are 10 states out of 50 that are non-disclosure states. Utah is the only one without a law saying we're a non-disclosure state. This year in the legislature did not go forward, but it was very close. There was a bill passed to require all commercial real estate to be automatically recorded with the state. Right. I mean, does anybody know why the state was coming down on commercial? Because they don't participate in organized real estate.
Right.
They hold their comps to themselves,
Yeah.
broker to broker. The assessors can't figure it out. And don't expect that to go away. Right. It just didn't, they ran out of time on it, but it was very close. I was called into a bunch of meetings and they're close. So I think next year you're going to see that bill run again. What is the danger of having sold data at the county level? Is there a danger? Taxes. People are worried about taxes, I think, in Utah more than anything else. But the main thing is that you'll hear it is the transfer tax. There's only 3 states left that don't have a transfer tax. Utah is one. And the transfer tax is basically when you purchase a home, at the closing of that home, there's a tax on the buyer, and it goes straight to the government. And it's a big fundraiser for the states and local governments, and we do not have it in Utah. So I think it's coming, be prepared. There's a lot of, sometimes you'll hear about RPAC, which is it's a fundraising entity of NAR and the state associations, the local associations. It is basically to help educate the Department of Justice on how our industry works and not to rely on some person who sees something on the news and makes a complaint. And it's to give them actual facts and statistics. It is used for locally to help defeat bills that are not great for Utah realtors. And so more than ever in the 17 years I've been doing this job now, in 2 different states, there's probably never been more of a sort of a governmental focus on our industry than there is right now. And that's just the reality of the world we live in. And I will say this is the best capitalist industry there is, right? I mean, you're all independent contractors, you're all working hard, and we're trying to educate them that that's really how it works. There's no collusion going on. It's just not true, but they feel like it's. Yep.
Brad, talk to us a little bit more about the sold data and our ability to disclose or not disclose that. So price, whatever, I sell a house, what can I disclose, what can I not?
So you disclose in the MLS.
Yeah.
And people always say, this is, we get this about 5 times a year now. It used to be more when I started, but people say, I can't disclose the sold property on this. Like it's it's a divorce and the husband doesn't want the wife to know and blah, 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 blah. I go, look, did you put it on the MLS to try to sell it? If you did, you've already disclosed what the listing price is. At some point, you sold it for something within that listing price. Everybody in the world knows what the listing price is. You've already advertised it. There's no fear on disclosing it in the MLS. It's amongst the professional group. We see a lot where, and you probably know this, that the state of Utah actually will send these little postcards to people who have bought homes when they know a transaction goes by, asking them to voluntarily disclose, but it doesn't look voluntary. It's like a little card, doesn't look voluntary. Please tell us what you sold your house for. You should, you don't have to fill it out. It's not like jury duty, right? It's just voluntary disclosure. And we see a lot of homeowners will disclose it to Zillow directly. They'll actually put in the sold price. We can't stop them from doing that. I mean, if they bought the house and they want to tell the world what they paid for it, that's their choice. However, there are major benefits to being non-disclosure, and that is, and the main one is the transfer tax. It's not hiding it, because you can go to any state that's disclosure, walk into the county, look up Luce, her house, and literally like it says what the tax is, and the tax is a formula. So all I have to do is multiply the tax by the formula, and I can get the price of the house. Right? It's super simple, easy to do. It would not destroy real estate in Utah. However, the transfer tax is a great benefit that we have. And as long as we're not a disclosure state, the transfer tax probably won't rise. However, if we have a bad year next year, the government loses money, they're gonna look for anything they can get to raise money, and that'll be right on the top of their list. In the MLS, cool things coming. We have probably the greatest statistics program you're ever going to see coming in a couple months. And it is called Rapid Stats. And we help to develop it with another MLS. And it is amazing when you see it. It is the easiest, like most modern user interface alert. So you can run quick stats on zip codes. You can draw areas. If you want to just run the stats on one street, you can run them. You can drip market infographics to your clients, branded to you. It's going to be awesome. So that's coming in 2 months. And then just as an aside, we launched our aligned showings software. I just want to give you a backstory because I can't communicate this out in writing all the time, but I have spoken about it all throughout the state and most of the brokers know about it. But does anybody know who owns Showing Time now? Zillow. Do you know how much they paid for them? $500 million in cash. Why?
With the data?
The data. Okay. The minute we heard that Zillow was buying Showing Time, and Showing Time was a very trustworthy independent entity. MLSs around the country have great relationships with them. The minute they were bought by Zillow, the goal is, I'll tell you what Zillow is going to do in the next couple months. Showing Time is going to be on the Zillow website, and they're going to allow the consumers to book listings, showings directly through Zillow. However, do you think they're going to go to the listing agent?
No.
No, they're going to go whoever pays Zillow the most money, and they're going to route that showing request to that agent. and they're gonna sell the data. Okay, so we are lucky. Us and 7 other MLSs got together, the Arizona Regional, which has 42,000 members, the Wisconsin MLS, the Oregon MLS, the Silicon Valley MLS, and Beaches, which is almost all of Southern Florida. We all got together and said we need to have a competing product that we own, that can't get bought. Okay, and that's what we built. We built Align Showing. So I encourage you all to use it because your data is safe. It's ours, we own it. And at the end of the day, we're hoping other MLSs around the country, we're gonna offer it out to all of them as well, that they will use it in addition to us. But just be mindful that data is valuable, right? You all know, I'm sitting there talking to my wife, we're meeting friends in Las Vegas at a timeshare, their kids, my kids' age. And I'm talking to her about it, and she opens up her Facebook page and there's an ad for that same hotel.
Yeah.
Right? Your devices listen to you. Your devices know what you're doing. What you put in a search string is recorded. These companies want your data. It helps them target. It's very valuable. And your data with your owners, your sellers, and your buyers is extremely valuable to them. Think about if they had the list of all your buyers and all their buyers' contact information.
Oh my gosh.
Right? That's valuable data. So I encourage you, we're not going to require you to use line showings, but there will be a time in the next probably 6 months where we discontinue showing time in our market. So with that, I'll leave you with any questions you have. And make sure you sign the sign-in sheet. We'll get you credit. And all that good stuff.
We're good.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I'll ask you later.
Yeah, you can ask me. Thanks for listening to me today.
Yeah, thank you.
That's very good.
Joanna, what question did you have?
Well, 5 years ago, the MLS magazine for the Salt Lake Board had stats by the city. So X number of homes
The magazine.
sold
We
in,
don't do a magazine.
okay.
Okay.
So is your statistics program gonna have something like that?
Yes, it'll have anything you want, any zip code, city, drawing. It's great. It's
So you're
great.
not related to the Salt Lake Board magazine? That's cool. Yeah. I can't quite figure out the
I mean,
relationship.
the relationship is that the associations, so they're our owners, so that's the best way to describe it is we're an independent company. We're technology companies, and we're real estate companies. So it's like, instead of having 1 million shares, we have our shares. So we definitely work with them,
Yeah,
very collaborative,
yeah,
but also we're not beholden to
Right.
501c6. We're
Yeah.
a company who has to operate that way, otherwise. we can't.
Thank
do you think that I thought you mentioned one of those settlement issues for the DOJ would be that if you're a licensee in the state, you can open any key box
That's,
in any,
that was not, that is gonna be one of the things.
I'd like to see that in Utah.
I totally agree. We're so close. Listen, we're so
Our
close to
city,
unifying.
St. George,
Yes.
Cedar City of all places, I mean,
I
right
mean,
today
I'm
have
just
their
telling
own
you right
board.
now, there's no reason they should have access.
Yeah.
Zero. It is, all it does is a disservice to the data.
Yeah.
And to your clients, like, you should never have to worry, like, can I find this listing in the MLS? Because
Exactly,
they're looking on Zillow or Realtor.com,
Yeah.
and they find it.
Yeah.
And they expect you to be able to take it to the house.
exactly,
And
exactly.
any artificial barrier to that is inexcusable. in my opinion. The fact that we have these outliers, and we're not the only state. In California, we had 110,000, but there were still 55 other MLSs.
Oh,
Big
God.
Bear, Beverly Hills, Palm Springs, like everybody wanted to be territorial.
Right,
So
right.
you're not immune to it. It's not like we're the only one.
Right.
We're doing way better than everyone else. We hit about 600 in southern Utah.
Wow.
So we're really close. All it's gonna take is some brokers to say, is there really a need for us to belong to that MLS?
Yeah.
Now, the association, you wanna belong because it's localized. You get
Right,
your
yeah.
your CE and you have classes like,
Right,
we wanna support the association.
makes
We just-
sense.
We want the data. in place.
Yeah.
And that's benefits everybody. So the association part, if anything, we make the association better because they can focus on doing
Yeah.
what they do.
Yeah.
Because if you try to run, they have one person in Marion County. Imagine you're running the MLS and you're running
Yeah.
the association.
That's so nice.
And 90% of the time when I call down there, there's an issue because brokers can't get data,
Yeah.
all kinds of issues all the time, every week.
Yeah.
Mailbox full,
Oh, my
You know,
gosh.
like, it's like, how is that a business?
Yeah,
It's not a
yeah.
business.
I mean, with Washington being as big as it is, or the MLS down there for our St. George agents, they're like so frustrated sometimes.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And they're
it's
quasi
bigger.
revolting. They're quasi revolting
Yeah.
right now. Their brokers are upset because they can't get they can't get data feeds. So right now in southern Utah, brokers are sending they're sending us the data to us and then we have to redistribute it. That's how.
Oh my gosh, it's so awful.
And we do that for we do that for Century 21.
Yeah.
We take your data in, we redistribute it so that Century 21 can get what they need,
Yeah,
because they can't get what they need out of those places. It's so bizarre.
Well, and thank you for explaining a line showing.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because I don't really love.
well,
Maneuvering with it, you know,
I
I
know.
can't see exactly where I wanna.
it is easier to use than showing time. Guaranteed, if you were to start the 2 today. But you know, whatever our legacy software is that we're trained in and we use, it's always gonna feel
Yes,
easier.
yes.
But if you started today, you'd be like, showing time, it's clunky.
yeah.
Do
Right.
we, is there a way to get texts that, yes, you can see that house? rather
Absolutely.
than
Yeah, oh, yeah,
just
text.
arrows?
Yeah.
Okay, because we haven't figured that out yet, so. Yeah.
In your settings,
Mhm.
you can add your sellers, you can add tenants, you can get text,
Okay.
in-app notifications, email, whatever you want. It's all.
Okay.
And we have videos, we'll come out, we'll do an align showings training. here.
Okay,
That'd be
yeah,
great.
that would be
Let's do
awesome.
that.
And, but it's a bigger deal, so we had to make the decision to release it. There are some amazing features in line showings that we have not turned on. They're literally there, you can't see them. We built it enterprise, so instead of it being like showing time where you get all or nothing, there's a lot of features, showing time people don't use it, couldn't use.
Yeah,
people.
yeah.
We built it so that each MLS can hide or unhide features.
Gotcha.
One of the features we have is a routing feature. It's awesome, you know, like add multiple.
Oh,
things, route,
right.
Just like
Yeah,
showing time. kind of does it. It doesn't meet my standards right now.
Gotcha.
Meaning, there's more training on it than I would expect. It's being finished up. As soon as it's finished up in this month, we'll turn it on. We had to get it out though, because showing time's about to announce this consumer thing.
Oh my God.
And we know people are gonna lose their minds.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
thing is if I was at a meeting last week, Zillow was the primary sponsor. There was not one word Zillow anywhere. They don't even want in organized real estate. They don't want to be branded Zillow. It's showing time plus,
Oh, wow.
right? So because they don't want the two to be associated. They want realtors to think they're different.
Yeah.
And
So cancel.
our educational approach, and it's hard for us to do it in writing because it looks like we're trying to target.
Right.
And you know,
Kind
it
of just
messes
have to
up,
talk about
it messes up with data, and then, you know, Zillow, it's not, their estimates aren't correct.
Yep.
It makes buyers think you don't know what you're doing, that it's not worth as much, but it is worth more because
Yeah.
the actual data is not there. It's just awful.
Zillow will tell you, I know they're saying
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
Text them here and be like, yeah, just switch more people off showing.
Right.
But they could care less about accuracy,
Yeah. They
because
don't
at the end
care.
of the day, it's about eyeballs.
Yeah, they want eyeballs, they want more agents buying.
Eyeballs are
Yeah.
what they care about, and so bad data. It doesn't matter, it's eyeballs, like
Yeah,
if you keep coming to my website, you think your neighbor's house is worth X, I have to go to my realtor and say to them, well, it says the house is worth $1 million, you realize, yeah, the one next to it's $1 million, but this is a 2-bedroom.
Yeah.
You know, one
Yeah.
bath, small house, because it doesn't understand neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It only understands,
Right.
you know,
The whole
Algorithms.
system,
Well, that was
you
very
know.
helpful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you very
so,
much.
yes,
I have a different question.
absolutely.
And you know, I was trying to use the MLS in
Uh-huh.
another city and it doesn't work. Like if I go to Colorado